Hello everyone and welcome to Better India's Facebook Live. Today on World Health Day, we are here to discuss the role of media in breaking barriers associated with depression. And as you can see, we have a very interesting panel here with us. I'm just going to go ahead and introduce each one of them. We have with us Dr. Anjali Chhabria, India's leading psychiatrist and author, Death is Not the Answer. We have Dr. Prakriti Podar, Managing Trustee of Podar Foundation that aims to build awareness around mental health. We have Feryna Wazheir, a model and actress. She's featured in blockbusters like Airlift, Rangrasiya, as well as several British productions. We have Aditi Mittal, India's superstar stand-up comic. That expression. And we have with us Guneet Monga as a filmmaker and producer. She's known to have always pushed the envelope a little further. She's produced landmark films like Gangs of Wasseypur, Shaitan, The Lunchbox, That Girl in Yellow Boots, to just name a few. And before we start, according to WHO, close to 5 crore people in India suffer from depression, yet it is a conversation that we all barely ever have. And I think hopefully that somehow we're going to break that barrier today. So let's start with a few basics. And my question is going to be to you, Dr. Chhabria. What is depression? What are the early symptoms? And how can you tell if someone's going through a bad phase?
Depression is just another disorder, just like typhoid, malaria or dengue. Okay, so it's a physical illness in which it is not just a sad mood. It is a continuous state of feeling sad and feeling low. It could just be a loss of interest in all activities, and this is coupled with sleep issues, with appetite issues, and a person constantly feels negative. You know, you just feel as if you're in a dark cloud and you're not able to come out. And sometimes with depression there could be negative thoughts like hopelessness, worthlessness and helplessness, which then lead a person to even want to end it all.
And Guneet, my next question is going to be to you, as mainstream cinema can play a very big role in talking about depression. But however, like, what do you have to say about the depiction of mental health in movies? How it's done, if it's correct, could it be better? Could we go further, deeper into it?
You know, what I think about it, I have myself gone through 1.5 years of depression, and I talk a lot about it to people I meet, because you never know what can help who, and the industry that we are in internally is also very it's very tough, and it's very tough to cope with. Right. Having said that, there is a stigma attached to depression, and the portrayal of depression is always, and we were just talking about it, and Aditi pointed out that, you know, it's not something so colorful and visual. You know, it's something very internal. It's more conversation oriented rather than drama oriented. And then when you try and do heightened drama like our older times, and that's when Dr. Anjali pointed that जो पहले ज़माने में visuals दिखाते थे in films like Damani and other films have actually left a mark on people that's such
that's kind of been our reference.
Our mental issues or mental health. But I mean, with the current state of affairs in our metros, I feel that there surely is a need of more addressing this. And I think when Deepika spoke about it very openly, there was a lot of conversation around it. In fact, there was recognition that ऐसा भी हो सकता है, you know, और ऐसा भी हो सकता है to a top star, to an actor, and then it becomes relatable, you know. And I have not seen Dear Zindagi, but I have heard that Dear Zindagi tackled it, and there is a conversation starter. Right. I think we're all here today to point out that it needs communication, and it needs to be addressed. So having saying to have to say that there is not a lot of portrayal about it. I just think more conversation around it, even if actors do it in their personal space or celebrities from all walks do it in their personal space, and I think that will also go a long way with the social media today.
And Dr. Chhabria, I have to ask you this when we were talking about like portrayal in films, and you mentioned like suicide or electric shocks, the way they've been shown and how we understand them. What do you have to say about that?
See, what happens is that, imagine somebody is going through depression and the doctor has said that you need ECTs. My memory of ECT is that, one actor has been caught and other people are coming and giving them a shock. I don't want to go through that treatment, And recently I've seen movies in which suicide has been, it's like, you're showing someone hanging. Now, if I'm depressed and if I look at that and I say, oh, that's what I want to do. And here we're talking only about the film media. I mean, every time there's a suicide which happens, what happens? All over the news, every person is giving details, such horrifying details. Are you really thinking about what the people undergoing depression? I have to actually call up parents and say, please keep the newspapers away, please keep them away from television, because they're going to see it and they're going to be copycat suicides. In fact, the way suicide happens in our country has actually changed after Nafisa's death, because there was horrifying scenes, details about where you take the rope, how do you kill yourself, all that. And at that time I remember discussing that, I said the way people kill themselves in India is going to change, and that's actually happened. We see more hangings now than we ever did before.
Well, absolutely. And Aditi, that brings me to asking you, now you're a stand-up comic. One would expect you to just be happy, laughing all the time. It's just like a professional hazard. So how does that work? Can it be pressurizing? Are there times when you want to tell people like, no, even I can be sad? And
so you know what? One of the things that always gets to me about this job is that you have to be on duty 24/7 for the entertainment of others. Okay. They're like, excuse me, you're a stand, and I'm like, I'm standing in line to buy a ticket for the bus. Okay. And someone like, excuse me, your comedy, say joke. And I'm like, sir, your uncle, I mean, are you a doctor? Then look at my boil right now in front of everybody. नहीं, मैं भी appointment लेके आती हूँ ना आपके office में, आप भी ticket खरीद के आओ. So there is that constant sort of, where they expect you to be your job kind of a thing. Though I have to say, I've realized this about comedy is that it's comedy and sort of every other emotion, whether it's fear, sadness, anger, is basically the other end of the same coin. And I remember sort of, and I've realized this actually since the conversations around it have sprung up so much, I realized that before that I had no idea, because our depiction of sadness was tujhe yaad hai na meri aayi, or like the next one is ki just stoic babuji, you will not cry a tear for 6-8 years. So there was no middle ground. Like they were like, तुम्हें sadness है तो तुम black कुर्ता पहन के घूमो. I said नहीं यार, मुझे नहीं लगाना काजल. Like so there was, and I didn't know there was a middle ground for a very long time. I didn't know there was a vocabulary around it, frankly, which. And I want to say now, but I remember just feeling an unease in my chest for the longest time, which I thought was normal. I thought that was default. And sort of, I've realized this also, is that our parents and, the generations before us have not been given this opportunity to explore their inner lives. They also don't, of course, see the kind of worlds that we live in, where you're constantly seeking validation from here. Can I tell a joke, make you laugh, entertain you?
In our parents' time, there was just stomachache or headache.
हाँ, उसके लिए हाजमोला खाओ, कैलाश पर्वत को थोड़ा लगाओ और चुपचाप बैठो वहाँ पे, like.
Right.
And so that sort of, and to be able to, of course, communicate with so many more people around us because they understand the same vocabulary now, has been such a relief for me personally. Because I realized this when I started doing stand-up. Actually, I was going through a very bad phase. I had just lost my job and everything, so I was lukhi बैठी थी. And the only time that I would get out of bed was to go on stage. And then I would come back and hate myself again. But that sort of is when I realized that it's possible. It's possible to want to carry on an absolutely normal life and still have this feeling in your chest which is not making you feel good. And luckily there were words for it. Luckily there were people you could reach out to and talk to about it who weren't as judgmental as कि तुम्हें मतलब shock मिलेगा. And I think that is what has changed for me personally. So now I go to a therapist anyway.
Okay.
I'm like, just in case, just in case, once, like, once a month, if I don't feel the need at that time, once a month, I'll be like, hello, ma'am. Thank you, namaste, pailagu. And my matha taking, yeah, it's like going to, like, taking a plunger to your brain. So clogging to hota rehta hai. And sort of, I think it's a great thing, and we are very lucky to be able to afford it. Like, we are very lucky to be able to lead privileged enough lifestyles where we have access to that kind of medical help.
True.
So, वो तो मैं was like, मैं तो
Great. Well, so we know that कि हर वक्त हंसने वाले लोग भी
बहुत वो sad clown वाला motif है ना कि you're like ha 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 but अंदर से la 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 la.
All right, and Feryna, it brings me to a question for you that you're also in a very high competing, high pressure environment, and your job requires you to look good all the time, feel good all the time about yourself. So how do you cope with that? Does that pressure get to you?
Yeah, definitely it does. When I first came to India, I remember the agency I joined, the manager there said to me, he said, other than Feryna Wazheir, at 6 o'clock in the morning, no one should see you without makeup on, not even the watchman. I was like, whoa. And so it is hard. And I think social media has made things even tougher for us, because now everywhere you go, like, you have to put on this facade of like giving selfies in the morning on Instagram, on Snapchat. We don't look that good. We use a lot of filters, right? but it's like, you're always on display. And I think that can create anxiety, and people watching other people's feeds and things, because obviously everyone's portraying the best side of them. Nobody's really saying I'm having a really shitty day, or, so all of these things kind of make you feel that everyone else is really achieving and doing a lot of things, and that can create a lot of anxiety. The way I deal with a lot of things is not to read the newspapers and to stay off social media as much as possible. I let her do that. Hi, Mansi. So, yeah, it's tough. It's definitely competitive. And also, I think for people in our industry, when we come here, a lot of our, especially for females in the industry, I think there is a lot of anxiety. There's pressures in many areas, which can create a lot of anxiety in you. I think when your value systems are challenged, coming from Scotland, when I came here, I joined the industry, many of my value systems were being challenged constantly, and that created a lot of anxiety in me. And I also went through phases where I found it hard to go out, be in the limelight, have to get dressed up and do all those things. So the way to cope with it is meditation, lots of yoga, and don't buy the papers.
The fun thing also that I remember, sort of the earliest recollection I have of expressing some kind of mental anxiety was to my dad. Where I remember in 7th standard, okay, I don't know in 7th standard where you're literally living in a boarding school where there's bunk beds. So you are sleeping on top of each other, okay. And I have means like there are ladders. So, and I remember going to my dad and telling him I'm feeling really lonely. And he, instead of, luckily, instead of making fun of me or instead of saying you literally have somebody sleeping in a bunk above you, he said to me, he's like, okay, you know what, Aditi, here, think about it this way, that if you don't enjoy your own company, remember that you can't expect the whole world to. So I was like, oh, I have to make myself entertaining. Like, I have to keep think about what I want. And sort of focus on myself instead of, the sort of outside things that can sort of get you down. So that really helped.
And which is, I think, a great point to be noted right over here. And my question to you now, Prakriti Podar, is you've been helping a lot of people suffering from depression. And when they come to you, what is the first thing or one of the things you would say to them to make them feel better?
Well, when somebody comes in with any kind of emotional issue, they come in, they don't tell me they're depressed. That's the first thing. They don't come because I don't give labels to people in the first place. And so when they come in, we just have a conversation. And that conversation can take as long as it needs. So I'll attend the person, I'll look at the person, I'll make sure that the person gets comfortable. And then we just start talking about what ails them. in my practice, I've noticed that a conversation starter is very easy if you're using something like a biofield viewer, or you can take the energy field and then you start talking about that and it breaks the ice. And then they can start talking about their issues. On the other hand, when somebody comes with depression and they come with a family, then of course it's a much more open platform and you can start engaging in this conversation and start talking to the entire family with what they kind of see that's going on. But always keeping in mind that the temple is the person that's come in. And being very, very focused on making sure that they are not stigmatized in any way by their family members, because even though the family members want to help, it's really difficult for them to be completely unbiased, because they oftentimes think that it is caused by something that the person is doing. And the most important thing with depression is the person is not doing this to themselves. So when somebody comes in, I make sure, at least this is the way I follow it, I make sure that I just get a complete understanding of the situation, and I do not ask questions. I allow them to kind of tell me what they're feeling, and then start working with what it is that they're presenting. Because the first time somebody comes to you, they'll come to you with a presenting problem that they can handle. They will not be talking about what they can't handle. So if they've been through sexual violence at the age of 4, they're not going to come here and say, hey, I'm depressed because you know what, I was sexually abused when I was 4. They're not going to do that. They're going to say, I just feel like I can't do well in relationships. And this really causes a lot of problems, because every time I'm in a relationship, I start feeling that the other person is being mean to me, or I can't handle this, or I'm being very aggressive and clingy with this person. So those are presenting problems. And therefore, with any kind of mental health illness or any kind of emotion that they're going through, it is imperative to go to the point of entry of the problem. And that is oftentimes not the point that they're presenting. In fact, just on another point, Aditi was mentioning about the fact that she managed to talk to her father. Most people are not able to talk to their parents. She was lucky. She's a lucky person. We're in a community where we're taught how to actually just put on a brave face, how to smile. And if an adult is saying something, we just zip it. So we are taught silence. And we're taught silence from a very young age. Kyun ro rahe ho? Kyun ro rahe ho? Rone ki kya baat hai? This is kind of what you're taught. So you are unable to express. And when you're unable to express, you are repressed. That is just the flip end of it. And so we teach people how to express what they're feeling, even when they don't have the words for it. And they do not have the words for it. They have not been taught the words. They have not been taught how to feel and taught how to explain what they're feeling. It's just, I'm not feeling good. Okay, what does that mean? Yeah. Right? Okay, I can't wake up. I feel like I'm lying in bed, but I just feel like I'm dead.
Yeah. I don't want to talk.
There's no actual, they can't tell you what they're feeling. So there's no point asking the question. So you ask the feelings. Right. What are you feeling? And attend with feeling, attend with body language, because of course your body language is speaking louder than your words. Right? So when you're talking to somebody, from their body, when they walk in, you can tell who's actually depressed and who's not. You can tell by just looking at somebody because of the energy that the body has. So it becomes obviously your physical body, your emotional body, your subtle bodies, they all play a part. And once you actually are exposing that side to a therapist, or you're in a safe environment, then that starts opening up. It's almost like the bud starts to open up, and then you can really heal. At that point, you can really heal. So there's no question that I would ask.
Basically. So my next question is kind of like open to all of you. So we are talking about like someone coming up to you and talking about it. But for any amount of anxiety or depression that each of you have been through, like where does the point come where you actually tell yourself that you might be suffering? Like where does that acknowledgement come? So what were those points for any of you, if there were?
So for me, it's a very high pressure job being a producer, being a young woman producer, and it's not common to be a producer. I mean, in India, usually actors and directors are producers. So it's almost like I had to always prove to people on what do you exactly do? What do you bring to the table? Right. And that kind of led me to think that, am I being a pile-on their lives? Then what is my worth? And I went into complete lack of self-worth. And even online, if you see my pictures, there is a time when I look weird. And it is, I looked at myself. I was reached a point where I was 85 kgs. I had produced 20 films, but I was just not there. I was not in the moment, and I didn't even know how to express or how to articulate. Right. And it reached a point where I could not reply to emails. I didn't feel like talking, meeting, pitching. I just kept feeling like there's zero self-worth, and whatever I do is not worth it. Am I even adding value to this world? Am I even adding value in my work? So, you're just so judged, and my work is everything. So you're made to feel not good enough, and that's when you start thinking about this. So for me, it was over a period of time when I looked at myself and I was like, I didn't know how to address it. So I actually went to a theater workshop first. Okay. To understand emotions and breathing. Wow. And through breath, you can express all your emotions. And I went to them in Pondicherry in Adi Shakti, and the first thing I said was, I need to learn how to cry. I don't know how to cry. I have not experienced crying. I've been brought up as a very strong person. I don't know how to cry. I've suffered big loss personally, but I don't know how to express it. So when they really taught me with breath crying, and I used to feel good practicing crying.
And you did have one big howling moment, did you?
Yeah, then it opened up.
It opened up, right.
But for years.
Several.
Yeah, but it became easier. But there is even, like you said, there's stigma to crying,
Right. Yeah.
And for me, I didn't know. What do you say? What do you do? So.
And there's such a huge stigma to going to a mental health person.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
because the thing is that I meet people every day who will say, for 2 years I've been thinking whether I should come and meet you. I said, do I look so scary? That for 2 years you're thinking. Because, there's a stigma that you'll give me medicines that'll make me sleep. Yeah. Once I take medicines, I'll always be taking medicines.
Or that biggest thing that log kya kahenge.
Instantly remember the Punarjanam and start playing the guitar. वही होता है.
So, but actually depression is more easy to treat than maybe a lung infection. Because all you do is, there are new medicines which don't make you sleep. Just take it for 3 to 6 weeks and you're out. So same person will come back after 2-3 weeks and say, but I'm feeling so good. I said, exactly, you're supposed to feel good, you're feeling good.
Right.
So there's a huge stigma associated with a lot of things. So I'm happy that WHO is talking about it.
One of the things
High time.
One of the things that we did in a mall was with our city mall, so that, they're really quite good with me, and we did this counseling at your mall step. So it was just like we had like 5-6 counselors sort of just laid out there, and we'd get 2 or 3 good-looking girls to go approach people, men and women, and we'd get them in and we'd do a counseling session right there. And it would be like a 15-minute counseling session, and after that we said, okay, how do you feel? We didn't know it was so easy to talk to somebody. Is this really what counselors do? They had no concept, because, and one of the things that I coined, similar to what you were saying, I coined it and I called it a recreational counselor. Because where I was in Toronto when I started all this, not the foundation, of course, that's not mine that I started. I just took it over. So out there, if you did not have a counselor, there was something wrong with you. How is it possible that you do not go to anybody, right?
First of all, overdevelopment.
Yeah. But because there's isolation, there's no family units, right? So they need counselors. Here we have family units, but unfortunately they're not educated enough to give you the support. So
there's no concept of space here.
There's none. I remember I told my children were like, oh, I'm bored because the iPad's gone. Sorry, I do give them some kind of social media, right? But at some point I take the iPad and I said, come to the office and do some research on depression. So they came, to do this research. They're very small, like 9 and 11. They did this research, and then afterwards I said, what have you found? To my older one, who looks at me and says, mother, there's just nothing about depression and mental health for children on the net. There is nothing there. All I've learned is it's your job to keep me happy. I said, dude, what are you talking about? I said, most often when I get a patient, we're talking about how unhappy they are because of their parenting that they went through from their parents. I said, so it's not my job. It's your responsibility to keep yourself happy, which is what her father told her. Very enlightened man, I must say, because nobody else really knows this.
Thank you, Baba.
Exactly. But it is your job to keep yourself happy. And if you're unable to find that core of happiness, then reach out to someone. Yeah? There are people out there and they're not scary. We look pretty decent. We're not scary.
You know, I was sort of, and actually this happened 2 years ago, when I was on the road like all the time. Okay, it was literally one hotel to an airport to some stage, back to a hotel. My skin had started flaking. I had not taken a poop properly in 13 days. Okay, so matlab, like I was just full up to here. Okay, and literally, and I was, of course, and I was missing home, and kapde gande ho rahe the, koi dhul nahi raha tha because hotel was so expensive. Like there were those, you know, like. And you think about it, you're like, but your job is to go out there and, you know, make people laugh, and it's so nice. That half an hour, it's great. And then I would just go back into the hotel room and be like, oh my God, I don't have a pair of socks. Like, I'll have to wear the same thing for the next 3 days. Oh God. And I remember sort of being so down and out during that time. And the first time somebody sent me a message saying, you know, and this was when the conversation had just started. Somebody sent me a message saying, I was really down and out. And I was watching your video and I felt really good and I just want to say thank you. I sat there and I cried. Oh. Because I was like, oh, like I didn't know somebody else felt like this. Right. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, we are in this together. Yeah. I don't know you, you don't know me, but this being able to tell each other that we're going through this, oh my God, I was like, that was my moment. I was like, you know, this is something I'm not going to avoid. I'm not going to hide behind. I'm not going to act like it's bigger than me, because it's not.
Yeah, I just want to bring one point here, that there are actually two types of depression. Okay, so one is a hormonal depression. It's an endogenous. That means there's something going wrong with your chemicals and that's why you're feeling depressed. And the other depression may be a reaction to something that you've gone through. Okay. So, you know, someone can just be put on some medication and feel depressed because of that. So for that, you need a doctor to treat you. Right. You know, and if it's something that you've gone through, then you need someone to help you heal. Right. So that's important to know, because, you know, a lot of people don't even know what they are supposed to do.
So this kind of education, like we are here, we are lucky enough to be talking, and this is going to reach out to a certain amount of people, but how do you think people can educate themselves more, and how can they get to know about this? Like for a regular person who's, you know, probably cannot talk to his family about it so much, does a job, go back home, doesn't have friends. Like how can people access more information?
No, see, I think there's a lot of information all over the net. Right. You know, there are books and there are topics, and people can even access, you know, counselors, and there are a lot of helplines which are there. Okay. So I think people can just today pick up the phone or just go online into any of those forums and talk about what they are feeling, and hopefully somebody on the other end is going to tell them where they need to go, whether they just need some medication or some meditation. Right. You know, so that is something that is easy to do today.
You know, I think one of the scariest things to me when I decided, I was like, okay, you know what, I cannot possibly take this all on myself, that I will now have to sort of seek help from somewhere. Right. I also went in with that same fear, ki, oh my God, I'll go and then they'll prescribe me medication and then I will be a different person. Right. I mean, the entry point into even just going to talk to someone, where they won't give you any medicines, you'll just be like, it's not that scary. It's not that scary, and really I would, you know, beg anyone and everyone, even if you don't feel like it, jaake aao. Harj kya hai? Matlab, it's not going to damage you by any standards.
And, you know, also this fear about medication. Now, sometimes we take medicines for malaria and dengue and everything. Right. But if you need something, because if your serotonin level is down and you just need something, you know, that's something that, you know, you just take it and try it. And if you have a problem, you talk to doctor.
Of expressing and surrendering to somebody is new, is alien, is scary, you know,
is intimate a process too.
Yeah, so that, you know, because we are I mean, chalo hum log to media mein hai, but so many people can't express, you know, like you said, hua kya hai, bas just anger is building, and even if anger, how to address something, you know, it is, so I feel at the core is just conversation.
Exactly. And also what happens is that you may not be able to do it, but around us there are so many people who are suffering. You know, so this friend who has just stopped talking to you for some time or is just withdrawing. Now these are the people who need help. 1 out of every 4 people who go to a doctor are depressed. That's how high the figures are. You know, so I think we need to run, not walk.
I mean, one of the things that we did with the foundation is actually they sent us to teach medical officers from the government how to counsel. And I know that they will not be watching Facebook, so I can mention this. They gave me 2 hours. No, they gave me 2 hours and they said, you must teach our medical officers how to counsel. So I said, chalo, theek hai. So I went, I said, it's a 21-day program, but I'll do it in 2 days. 2 hours, no, not 2 days. Over 2 days for 2 hours each, 200 people. So I said 200 people in the beginning. So I said, fine, I will try my best, and of course translated all the slides into Marathi. I can't speak Marathi, but somebody else could, so I can speak Hindi, of course. And I said, counseling is not giving advice. You do not give any advice to anybody. Okay? The moment you're giving advice, the person can go to his mummy and papa and get the advice from there. Right. You are not supposed to give your advice to this person, because their frame of reference is completely different, so you have to attend. So anyway, yes, we've understood, madam, we are all doctors. Okay, I'm not, sorry. Chalo, theek hai. Okay. So in 1 hour, I said, since you're doctors, and they were psychiatrists, but they weren't counselors. And we did everything. I didn't have to teach them about any medication. I would have to learn it, in fact. But I didn't have to teach them about that. I just had to teach them how to attend. Then we did a role play. The first role play I did was with an ASHA worker who'd been doing counseling for a while. And with this guy who was a doctor who was pretending to be somebody who was an alcoholic. And they come together and they sit down, and she goes to the family, problem kya hai? Pehle to you don't say problem kya hai. Okay. So then the guy said, mera beta wo pita rehta hai, ye wo na. So the ASHA worker who's been doing this for a while looks at him and says, तुमको नहीं पता क्या कि तुम्हारे मम्मी पापा को इतना तंग आ रहे हैं वो आपसे क्योंकि आप पीते हो? So I said, उसको पता है, this is not counseling. I said, आप लोग ने 1 घंटा मेरा पूरा बर्बाद कर दिया है. Because counseling is just not that. And it's unfortunate. And I've been to counselors before because I needed to learn the Indian context. Because when you're educated in the Western concept, you actually understand a lot about yourself. But here it's all about community, the community that you live in, etc., and you operate in. So you've got to be more sensitive to that.
If your gynac is asking you like, "Shadi hui ki nahi?" I'm like, "Aapko kya laddu laun kya?" Like, then it's no surprise that there's this sort of mistrust with a medical professional where you're like, "Tum kya bataoge? Kiske bare mein? Mere bare mein? Like, what is the?" So that's understandable.
So we are live right now, and a lot of people have questions. So we're just going to take some of the viewers' questions. We have Anupama Saxena, who is asking that is depression indicative of lack of good friend circle?
No, it's not indicative of lack of good friends, but if you have good friends, you make the process easier. Okay. So people who are, they're introvertish, find it difficult to express. Okay. And when they are suffering, they may not be able to express themselves. Right. And because you're suffering, you may not reach out to your friends. So depression may make the process worse.
Okay. And we have Sanchai Pal, who's asking, what are the common mistakes people make while trying to manage depression, and how can you avoid them? So, anybody?
I think one of the mistakes is that they don't reach out to people. When you should reach out, you withdraw further. Okay. And the second thing is that, there are mistakes that other people make. So if I'm going through a depression, if somebody tells me, no, it's okay. I had a child recently who went up to the school teacher and said, I'm feeling anxious. He said, kuch nahi hota hai, jao wapas jaake baith jao. So the people around need to be very sensitive. So how we address someone else's depression. So if someone tells you that, I want to kill myself, don't put down the phone and say, oh, you're talking rubbish.
Yeah.
Because later on, if the person actually does commit suicide, you're going to feel horrible about it. So just behave with the person how you would do if your friend got a heart attack. If your friend got a heart attack, you leave everything and go there, right? So if someone tells you that, I'm feeling depressed, I want to kill myself, leave everything, spend time, listen to them, don't judge them, and get them the help that they may need.
And the next question is very interesting. Actually, this is about Rinta Regi asks how to get over the fear of slipping back into depression after you've recovered from it, because I think that's one of the biggest fears people live in, right? That you can just slip back into it anytime.
See, what happens is that yes, of course, you can go back into it. It's like a slip disc. If you've had it once, your spine is weak. So what I tell people is that that's the time to strengthen your spine.
Okay.
When you recover from a depression, then you need to find out if there were extrinsic factors or intrinsic factors. And that's the time you need therapists, you need to find your calling, You need to maybe go to some other groups like satsang, or we have so many things, spiritual healings. You use all of that, build yourself up, and also remember that if you fall back again, you came out the first time, you can come out again.
And once they build their resources and they have those skills with them, they can utilize them at every point. So if this lady has come out of depression, she already has learned some skills, and she just needs to carry on building that muscle. So you carry on trying to do the same thing.
There is one thing that I want to say, that especially in our profession, in the film industry, it's a constant this thing for actors, writers. It's a very isolating process of hoping for you to get selected somewhere, to get work somewhere, and you have actually no control over that process. And it's such a dream world that we buy into. Right. So it's I have seen that way too often. It's very easy to be in self-doubt, to be in lack of self-worthiness. I am not good enough, I am not cutting it, I'm not lucky, I'm not, whatever the reasons are. But so I just feel that every day showing up, every day building a mechanism of either talking to somebody or a friend, or, I mean, and like you said, be friends with yourself and not seeking validation on daily basis. So I specifically think that the level of insecurity at the media industry is very, very high. And while we don't talk about it, while there are so many support groups, so I feel that it needs all the more reason to have a conversation.
Like how you have dental hygiene, you have mental hygiene. Which you can
ask one thing. I actually want to know this, because I realized that one of the things that really helped me was building a schedule.
Yes.
Being in one place at one time every day.
Yes.
Whether it was, and I mean, luckily at some point I found it to be the gym. But for the longest time I was like, the first thing I did, I used to pick up my phone and literally before my eyes opened, just call my mother. So I was like, now I know that I have one thing about me. कि कल सुबह उठ के आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू बी लाइक आज का क्या प्लान है, आई बी लाइक पहले ये टास्क खत्म करना है, फिर उसके बाद देखते हैं, then the world can rain down on me.
Right. Having a routine helps. Sleeping on time, waking up on time, drinking enough water. Yeah. All these are things that just help you to, and going to work every day. Because people, when they're depressed, they want to just curl up. But just getting up and going somewhere, going to the gym, it just makes you look at different people and just makes you feel good about yourself.
And not just in the film industry, but a lot of my friends outside the film industry, I feel generally there's so much pressure on students today and getting those grades and marriage pressure, and I've had friends who are 26 and their moms are like putting them on Bharat Matrimony and Shadi.com and they don't want to get married, but there's there's also so many societal pressures and things like that. So, and 1 in 4 is going to suffer from mental health at some point in their life. And like you're saying, it's easy for people to Google, and today you can get all the help, but so many girls that speak to me feel lost. They don't feel able to go and Google and
actually we need a lot of counselors. We need counselors in schools, in colleges,
and good
doctors,
counselors who won't actually start.
Accessible, like who you can easily approach is, I think, the key here. Okay, we're just going to take one last question from Manabi. She's asking, the medicines we have for depression, do they have any side effects?
See, this is a big fear. Okay, anything and everything has side effects. If you have too much of any tablet, you can have a side effect, and that is why the treatment needs to be supervised by a good doctor.
Right.
Okay, so it is not true that all antidepressants have side effects. In fact, some of the newer ones are just 1 tablet a day. You get up in the morning, take it, and go to work. That's how simple it is.
All right, and here, like you mentioned that you kind of like not read the paper, not go on social media so much. But I'm going to like talk about the other side. That do you think social media at any point has helped in creating awareness? And like you also mentioned, like when Deepika Padukone came out with the whole story, it kind of became okay. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Firstly, because it's such a huge stigma, तो पहले तो उसको normalize करना है ना. Conversation spread उसके बाद होगी. So even like for me, I mean, waking up and seeing Instagram quotes is like a routine that I enjoy and I reflect, and it's.
By the way, I have to say, this is the max I've talked about mental health. with a group of people, by the way. And that is not to say anything amazing, by the way. It is shameful that this is the max I have spoken with anybody.
So go around spreading the word.
Done,
That
done.
is not the answer.
This is the first book.
Yeah, please
Yes.
do. Like, who should read it? What do you expect?
I was shocked to know that there was no book in India talking about suicide. When suicide kills more people than any physical disorder in the age group 15 to 29.
It's scary.
More deaths happened because of suicide and there was no book.
And India has the highest rates.
And India has 1 out of every 3 suicides happening in the world happen in India. You know, so I sat down and I said, if I won't do it, who will do it? So I sat and wrote this book. And unfortunately, the media was not really promoting it because they said, no, we don't talk about these things. But when there is a suicide, how does the media portray it? They'll give you details. You know, newspapers are filled with what did he do and how he did it and all of that. Yes, they're just sensationalizing it. You know, why did that young girl kill herself? Oh my God, he was a comedian. Why did he kill himself? And then the news goes away. You know, but I think media has to be responsible in portraying it. I mean, you write this article, but at the end of it, give signs and symptoms, give people's numbers, give helpline numbers.
And I love social media because of the fact that it does actually start conversation and it does reach out to people. And one of the things, even like the boy that just committed suicide, he did send out signals where he could have been helped. He didn't just, commit suicide without actually reaching out. 3 or 4 messages were just about that, which is how his friends actually found out and reached out to his dad. But the point is, at that time, social media has played a part, and people can come together at that point to save the person. So it works. It's 2 sides of the same coin. It can help in, first of all, the conversations become easier because you are talking about it. At Podar Foundation, we're only putting out social feeds, on depression, this, that, and the other, on solutions, on help, on a helpline, on a phone line. All this kind of information is out there just because it makes it easier. I remember, though, when I started, people started calling me, my friends started calling me and saying, oh, is something going on with you? Are you going through depression? I said, no, I'm helping other people, like, please. Okay. But it is 2 sides. Yes, social media is promoting all this negative, viral, kind of stigmatized suicide attempts. But that's because the person has already been pushed to the edge. So they're doing it. And social media will only react to it, right? And it's a process. Media is a process of growing. So we are going to come up with...
But there are myths about suicide that people who talk about it are not going to do it. Yeah. Actually, 7 out of 10 people who talk about it are the ones who are going to kill themselves. So I think it's important that even if you think you're overreacting, if someone talks about it or gives all these signals, we need to reach out to them.
In a moment, the mind changes and flips over and does
because
that.
They actually don't want to die.
Yeah.
They want someone to come and save them.
That's why
even
talking
if
about
that video, he's crying, he wants someone to save him. So I think that is important.
All right, we have another question from Abhigya Mukherjee who wants to know that how do I recognize that I'm suffering from depression?
So some of the symptoms are feeling low without any reason, loss of interest or feeling sad most of the time, and having appetite, sleep changes, and having negative thoughts, and thoughts of sadness. You only look at yourself and feel bad about yourself. And you may also feel hopeless, worthless, and helpless. And you may have thoughts of ending your life or think that, life is better off without you. So these are some of the symptoms.
And people can recognize it because there's a lot of interest in the way in which you keep yourself, the way in which you dress, the way in which you will stop obviously stepping out. There's isolation that gets built in. So even people around you can tell. Your family can tell if they actually know what signs and symptoms to pick up on. And then that support group should come together.
And in teenagers, it's often anger. It may not be sadness. So that is also important, that if a teenager is just being angry and rebellious and, their sleep cycle changes. So these are,
and it's getting younger and younger. So people at 11, when they're talking about, I'm not feeling good, take it seriously. Because that child at 11 is going through something. The peer pressures become hard for them even at this young age because of social media. I had somebody come to me who said, my daughter stopped eating. She was 10 years old. And that body dysmorphia that comes in at that age is also a part that, it's linked to depression. Every other element is linked to depression because without that core getting shaken, these other things do not become prominent.
I've had 6-year-olds
Yes.
talk about being fat. Don't eat that. How can you eat that? You're going to get fat.
Yeah.
I mean, 6-year-olds.
The youngest suicide I've seen was a 6-year-old. A suicidal attempt, and she fooled everybody by saying कि मैंने मीठी गोली समझ के मैंने खा ली. And actually, when we found out, she actually wanted to kill herself.
Very sad.
You know, and why even our senior citizens, our geriatric age group is increasing. There are so many.
43%
Yes.
are going through depression because of the
Yes.
isolation. The forced isolation, because our communities force them out. I mean, one of the things that a gentleman I work with says constantly is that when we are young, we own that space. And as we get older, we start getting put into a smaller and smaller room with one television. So from owning that house, we get isolated into this one space. Plus, our infrastructure doesn't allow us to actually go up and down. Lift nahi hai kahi, chalna padta hai, chal nahi sakte hai. You know, like those kind of things really impact someone. That community of going and buying vegetables together, going and meeting and interacting with your people, you can't do that anymore. That builds so much isolation. And you're right, 43%. And we have no structure for them. We have nothing.
What about homosexuality? Yeah, that's another topic. You know, they feel they don't know how to express themselves. Nobody's going to accept them. They go through, a lot of them, you know, get extremely depressed.
especially.
I mean, the pressures of masculinity has caused one of our biggest groups that sees suicide as a cause of death is young men. Is that so many young men who are under the pressure of everything that can't even go talk to someone about it. At least with women, I think there is still a general impression that we will talk to each other. But with men, and I mean, there is not a single man sitting on the panel today, which is a surprising thing considering, I mean, this is sort of almost inversely affecting men. And so those kind of pressures, I bet, add up and build up.
Definitely. And with kids, I remember you were talking about media and films. Indian films in general are all codependent people. I mean, that's not normal relationships. And that's all that people see when they're just looking at watching movies. These codependent, I can't live without you and I'm going to die without you, all this bakwas bullshit. I mean, it's not really actually...
But I love the breakup song which came.
Oh, I love that.
That's too when they break up.
I like that song.
You know, you're making breakup so easy. I was happy. I was really happy for that.
That's something. And on that happy note, well, we would definitely like to talk more about it, but unfortunately we have to wrap up here. And I just want like parting thoughts from each one of you about just the topic and how you felt about it and where you would like, how much awareness would you like to create?
I was very happy to come and be part of this discussion today. I think it's great that people are having the conversation. I think the individual and society are interdependent on each other. So you can't be happy unless you make the people around you happy. So look at the people around you and find ways to encourage them to join things with you, whether it's doing kriya, satsang, yoga, talking. If everyone helps each other and has that conversation, I'm sure we'll all be better and happier.
I'm so glad that we are talking about this because it's what I've been talking about the last 25 years. So I'm so happy everybody else is talking about it. So whatever it is, even if you get depressed, find help. That is not the answer, and you're going to find something great to do with yourself.
Definitely.
Well, I mean, I think I've been depressed for a while, and I've come out. It's been a year, and I really look at even this conversation as I picked up so much that even I didn't know about, and talking to both of them and listening to other experiences. I think this is also a process of self-awareness and healing. That there's so much more one can do and one can learn, and listening to Aditi say that one should just go every month, and normalizing this. So thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And also, if you are feeling down and out, just put it down in 5 sentences and say it to someone. Do not feel embarrassed or ashamed, because trust me, everyone's worse off than you. That is also a very true fact of life. So don't feel shame. And man, if you can go for therapy, it's awesome. Just go once a month just to find out. We want to just go see कि like क्या करते हैं अंदर क्या करते. Just go and come see.
As for me, of course, this is a topic that is close to my heart. But more importantly, the people that are going through depression, I just want to highlight that you're already at a very evolved state because you're introspecting. There's existential questions that you have, and once you actually feel these kind of things and you seek therapy, you'll realize that you can catapult so far ahead in your journey of life and your journey of being that you should not feel like there is no answer. So please reach out, because I mean there's 3,000 at least that we know counselors and therapists, so you know where to go. Pick up the phone, Google, get on Facebook, you'll find somebody.
Oh, is there a list by Better India which like does the... Okay, there's an article with a link on the Better India website, and not with a link, obviously, that's sort of, but there's an article with all the numbers and all the email addresses and everyone you can reach out. So the resources are right there on the Better India website.
There you go. And thank you so much for being such an intriguing, such an interesting panel. It was lovely to talk to each one of you here. And it's World Health Day, everybody. Like they said, reach out, talk to people. And this was the Facebook Live with the Better India. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.